Today we're going to talk about the city that I grew up and lived in, um, and actually the city that I grew up and lived in. There's a whole fucking Wikipedia page on it, just giving you the breakdown of the whole thing. Um, so today, see, I grew up in Chicago. Like I was born and raised in Chicago. I grew up there. Then I ended up living for 16 years and then moved back to it last year. Um, So now Chicago is one of the most populated cities in the U.S. state of Illinois and in the Midwestern United States, located on the western shore of Lake Michigan, which is a very popular lake that people like to go beaching at, like they like to go swimming at, like beach and boating on it and everything. Um, it is the third most populous city in the United States with a population of 2.74 million people at the time the 2020 census was taken, while the Chicago metropolitan area itself has 9.41 million residents and is the third largest metropolitan area in the nation. Um, Chicago is the seat of Cook County, the second most populous county in the United States overall. Now, here are some of the things that you'll see in Chicago. Um, you got at the top here. This is in the Loop area. The Loop is a very popular tourist destination. You got the Chicago River where people like to go boating at. Then you got the L train. Then you got Wrigley Field where the Chicago Cubs play. Navy Pier is a very popular area. I went there back in June with my roommate, and we actually got to see a lot of the stuff out there. Art Institute of Chicago, and then you got Buckingham Fountain. Um, the one thing I never understood is the bean in Chicago. I don't see the fascination with that one, but that's also a very popular thing. If I find a picture of that, I'll show that to you. Um, Now, Chicago was incorporated as a city in 1837 near a portage between the Great Lakes and the Mississippi River watershed. It grew rapidly in the mid 19th century, but in 1871, the Great Chicago Fire would destroy several square miles and left more than 100,000 people homeless. That's not uncommon though. Anyway, for that to happen. Hello, everybody that's joining in. Um, but Chicago's population continued to grow. Chicago made noted contributions to urban planning and architecture, such as the Chicago School, the development of the City Beautiful movement, and the steel-framed skyscraper. Um, Today we're talking about Chicago, the city where I grew up and lived at. Um, but I will say there are some areas to avoid in Chicago. There are some gang members that do live out here, and the particular gang member areas are the ones you want to avoid. Okay, so Chicago is an international hub for finance, culture, commerce, industry, education, technology, telecommunications, and transportation. It has the largest and most diverse financial derivatives market in the world, generating about 20% of all volume in commodities and financial futures alone. Okay, so now in most states, you would need a car to get around. In Chicago, you have the planes. You have airplanes that you could fly back and forth on. Then you got the trains to take you back and forth, and then you got Uber, Lyft, and the buses. And then the buses that get you back and forth. That's how you are able to get back and forth around here if you don't have a car or a bike or anything like that. O'Hare International Airport, along with Midway, are routinely ranked among the two busiest airports by passenger traffic. And the region is also the nation's railroad hub. The Chicago area has one of the highest gross domestic products, known as GDP, of any urban region in the world. I'm neither, because I don't hang out with gangs. Chicago's economy is diverse, with no single industry employing more than 14% of that workforce. Chicago is a major tourist destination, with 55 million visitors in 2024 to its cultural institutions. Last week I visited the museum, the Museum of Science and Industry, which was a great place to go to. To its cultural destinations, Lake Michigan beaches and restaurants and more. And no, Now, Chicago's culture has contributed much to the visual arts, literature, film, theater, comedy, especially informational comedy, food, dance, and music, particularly music like jazz, blues, soul, hip hop, gospel, and the electronic dance music, including house music. Um, and then Chicago is home to the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and the Lyric Opera of Chicago. I've never got into opera music. To me, that's considered torture. I used to own a dachshund. His name was Harley. Eventually he died about 12 years ago. Yeah, I used to live in Marable, Indiana. Marable, Indiana was one of the horrible areas. Now while the Art Institute of Chicago provides an influential visual arts museum art school, the Chicago area also hosts the colleges, University of Chicago, Northwestern University, and the University of Illinois Chicago, among other institutions of learning. Now, professional sports in Chicago include all major professional leagues, including two Major League Baseball teams, which are Chicago Cubs and the Chicago White Sox. The city also hosts the Chicago Marathon, which is one of the world marathon majors. Um, so now when it comes to the name Chicago in itself, I take the bus to go to the city if I need to. I The name Chicago was derived from a French rendering of the indigenous Miami, Illinois name Sika Kanki, the locative form of the word Sakakwa, which can mean both skunk and ramps, a wild relative of onion and garlic, known to botanists as a Lilium trichocum. Um, so the first known reference to the site of the city of Chicago is as Chicago, but it was spelled Checagou at first. This was by Robert de La Salle around 1679 in a memoir. Henry Jotel in the Journal of 1688 noted that the eponymous wild garlic grew profusely in the area, according to his diary of late September of 1687. I got my pumpkin coffee from Dunkin' Donuts today. Yes, Chirac is also known as one of those places, but nobody ever calls it Chirac anymore. Um, I had not heard Chicago called Chirac in years. Um, when we arrived at the said place called Chicago, which according to what we were able to learn of it, it has taken this name because of the quantity of garlic which grows in the forest in this region. Um, we're talking about the city of Chicago, which is where I was born and raised at. Um, Now, the city of Chicago has been known by several different names throughout its history, such as Windy City, Chi-Town, Second City, and City of the Big Shoulders, and Chirac. Um, this is one place I'm going to have to go to. This is actually held at the Field Museum of Chicago. Um, yes, I am a Bulls fan. Hopefully they do better than the Cubs this year, since the Cubs did not do anything for me this year. Um, shit, fucker. Okay, hold on. motherfucker. There you go. Okay. So well, technically, the person that they actually gave it to was a guy named DuSable. DuSable is actually credited with finding Chicago. And there's a street named after him anyway. In the mid 18th century, the area was inhabited by the Potawatomi, an indigenous tribe who had succeeded the Miami, the Sauk, and the Meskwaki people in this region. Not sure if I'm saying that. Now, the first known permanent settler in Chicago was a fur trader named Jean Baptiste Point DuSable. DuSable was of African descent, perhaps born in the French colony of Haiti, and he established a settlement in the 1780s. He is commonly known as the founder of Chicago, and there's a street named after him called DuSable. I was born and raised on the north side of Chicago. I grew up off of Addison Street, which is the street you would take to get to Wrigley Field. Actually, this is according to what's on here. Now, in 1795, following the victory of the the United States in the Northwest Indian War, an area that was to be part of Chicago was turned over to the U.S. for a military post by native tribes in accordance with the Treaty of Greenville. It's not. In 1803, the U.S. Army constructed Fort Dearborn, which was destroyed during the War of 1812 in the Battle of Fort Dearborn by the Potawatomi before being later rebuilt. Not according to this. DuSable was actually credited with finding Chicago. Now, after the War of 1812, the Ottawa people and the Potawatomi tribe ceded additional land to the United States in the 1816 Treaty of St. Louis. The Potawatomi were forcibly removed from their land after the 1833 Treaty of Chicago, and it will who cares what they do? And they were sent west to the Mississippi River as part of the federal policy of Indian removal. Now you get to 19th century, and on August 2nd of 1833, the town of Chicago was organized with a population of about 200 people starting. Within several years, it grew to more than 6,000 people, and on June 15th of 1835, the first public okay, so and then it grew to 6,000. Then it grew to 6,000 people on June 15th of 1835. The first public land sales began with Edmund Dick Taylor as receiver of the public monies. Now, the city of Chicago was incorporated on Saturday, March 4th of 1837. And then for several decades was the world's fastest growing city. Now, at the site of the Chicago Portage, the city became an important transportation hub between the eastern and western United States. Chicago's first railway, Galena and Chicago Union Railroad, and the Illinois and Michigan Canal opened up in 1848. The canal allowed steamboats and sailing ships on the Great Lakes to connect to the Mississippi River. Now, a flourishing economy brought many residents from rural communities and immigrants from abroad. Manufacturing and retail and finance sectors became dominant, influencing the American economy during this time. The Chicago Board of Trade, which was established in 1848, listed the first ever standardized exchange trade forward contracts, which were called futures contracts. Now, in the 1850s, Chicago gained national political prominence as the home of Senator Stephen Douglas, the champion of the Kansas-Nebraska Act and the popular sovereignty approach to the issue of the spread of slavery. Now, these issues also helped propel another Illinois resident, Abraham Lincoln, to the national stage. Lincoln was nominated in Chicago for U.S. President in the 1860 Republican National Convention, which was held in a purpose-built auditorium called the Wiggum. He defeated Douglas in the general election, and this set the stage for the Civil War. Now, to accommodate a rapid population for better sanitation, the city improved its infrastructure. In February of Chicago's Common Council approved Chesbrough plan to build the United States' first comprehensive sewer plan. I got the pumpkin flavored coffee. Now, the project raised much of central Chicago to a new grade with the use of jack screws for raising buildings. Now, while elevating Chicago and at first improving the city's health, the untreated sewage and industrial waste now flowed into the Chicago River and subsequently into and then so the untreated sewage and industrial waste now flowed into the Chicago River and subsequently into Lake Michigan, polluting the city's primary freshwater source. Now the city responded by tunneling 2 miles out into Lake Michigan to newly built water cribs. In 1900, the problem of sewage contamination was largely resolved when the city completed a major engineering feat. It reversed the flow of Chicago River so that the water flowed away from Lake Michigan rather into it. This project began with the construction and improvement of the Illinois and Michigan Canal and was completed with the Chicago Sanitary and Shipping Canal that connects into the Illinois River, which also flows into the Mississippi River. Now, on October 8th of 1871, the Great Chicago Fire destroyed an area of about 4 miles. Now, I've heard about the Chicago Fire thing, about the Great Chicago Fire, but I've never really read into it. At the time, it destroyed an area of about 4 miles and about 1 mile wide. A large section of the city of Chicago at that time. Now, a large section of the city at the time, it was about 300 people were killed and over 100,000 people were left homeless from this fire. Now, however, much of the city, including railroads and stockyards, survived intact, and from the ruins of the previous wooden structures arose more modern structures of steel and stone that set precedent for the worldwide construction that had to be rebuilt. Now, during its rebuilding period, Chicago constructed the world's first skyscraper in 1885 using steel skeleton construction. Between 1851 and 1920, the city grew significantly in size and population by incorporating many neighboring townships. With the largest annexation happening in 1889, with 5 townships joining the city, including the Hyde Park Township, which now compromises most of the south side of Chicago and the far southeast side of Chicago, and the Jefferson Township, which now makes up most of Chicago's northwest side. The desire to join the city was driven by municipal services that the city could provide its residents. Now, Chicago's flourishing economy attracted huge numbers of new immigrants from Europe and immigrants from the eastern United States. Of the total population in 1900, more than 77% were either foreign-born or born in the United States of foreign parentage. Like Germans, Irish, Polish people, Swedes, and Czechoslovakians made up nearly 2/3 of the foreign population. By 1900, whites were 98% of the city's population at that time. Now, labor conflicts followed the industrial boom and the rapid expansion of the labor pool during the Gilded Age, including the Haymarket Affair on May 4th of 1886, and in 1894, the Pullman Strike. Anarchist and socialist groups played prominent roles in creating very large and highly organized labor actions. Concerns for social problems among Chicago's immigrant poor led Jane Addams and Ellen Gates Starr to open up a place called the Hull House in 1889. Programs that were developed there became a model for the new field of social work. Now, during the 1870s and 1880s, Chicago attained national stature as the leader in the movement to improve public health. City laws and later state laws that upgraded standards for the medical profession and fought urban epidemics of cholera, smallpox, and yellow fever were both passed and enforced. Now, these laws became templates for public health reform in other cities and states. Now, the city established many large, well-landscaped municipal parks, which also included public sanitation facilities. The chief advocate for improving public health in Chicago was John H. Rauch, M.D. Rauch established a plan for Chicago's park system in 1866. He created Lincoln Park by closing a cemetery filled with shallow graves, and in 1867, in response to an outbreak of cholera, he helped establish a new Chicago Board of Health. And 10 years later, he became the secretary and then the president of the first Illinois State Board of Health, which carried out most of its activities in Chicago. Now, supposedly, Lincoln Park Zoo is haunted due to the fact that it was built on a cemetery. Now, in the 1800s, Chicago became the nation's railroad hub, and by 1910, over 20 railroads operated passenger service out of 6 different downtown terminals. In 1883, Chicago's railway managers needed a general time convention, so they developed a standardized system of North American time zones. And the system for telling time spread throughout the continent, but in 1893, Chicago hosted the World's Columbian Exposition on former marshland at the present location of Jackson Park. I've never been to Jackson Park. I would have to look at that, see where that's at. Now, this exposition drew 27.5 million visitors and is considered the most influential World's Fair in history. Now the University of Chicago, formerly at another location, moved to the same South Side location in 1882. The term Midway for a fair or carnival referred originally to the Midway Plaisance, a strip of parkland that still runs through the University of Chicago campus and connects the Washington and Jackson Parks together. During World War I and the 1920s, there was a major expansion in the industry. The availability of jobs attracted African Americans from the southern United States. Between 1910 and 1930, the African American population of Chicago increased dramatically from 44,103 to 233,903. This great migration had an immense cultural impact called the Chicago Black Renaissance, which was part of the new Negro movement in art, literature, and music. Continuing racial tensions and violence in the city, such as the Chicago Race Riot of 1919, also occurred. Now, the ratification of the 18th century, the ratification of the 18th Amendment to the Constitution in 1919 made the production and sale, including exportation, of alcoholic beverages illegal in the United States. This ushered in the beginning of what is known as the Gangster Era, a time that roughly spans from 1919 until 1933, when Prohibition was repealed. Now, the 1920s saw gangsters that were up and coming, like Al Capone, as Al Capone sent men, and then you had Dion O'Bannon, Bugs Moran, and Tony Accardo, and they battled law enforcement and each other on the streets of Chicago during the Prohibition era. Chicago was the location of the infamous St. Valentine's Day Massacre that happened in 1929, which supposedly Al Capone sent men to gun down members of a rival gang on the north side, led by Bugs Moran, leaving 7 rival members dead. I'm actually being truthful here. Now, from 1920 to 1921, the city was affected by a series of tenant rent strikes, which led to the formation of the Chicago Tenants Protective Association. passage of the Kessinger tenant laws and of a heat ordinance that legally required flats to be kept above 68 degrees Fahrenheit during winter months by landlords, and a lot of landlords would not turn the heat up, and people would freeze to death. I've been called a nerd so many times throughout my life. It does not bother me. It's because a lot of people that do name calling don't have a life for themselves. So Chicago was the first American city to have a homosexual rights organization. The organization, formed in 1924, was called the Society. Was called the Society for Human Rights. It produced the first American publication for homosexuals, friendship, and freedom. Police and political pressure caused the organization to disband. There's two other pictures from the old times. First one up here is the Chicago tenants when they started protesting the rent increases and wanting to keep the heat up. Now down the bottom is a soup kitchen. Men outside a soup kitchen during the Great Depression when it first hit in 1929. Now, when the Great Depression hit, the Great Depression brought unprecedented suffering to Chicago, in no small part due to the city's heavy reliance on the heavy industry. Now, notably, industrial areas on the south side and neighborhoods lining both branches of the Chicago River were devastated by the Great Depression. By 1933, over 50% of industrial jobs in the city of Chicago had been lost, and unemployment rates amongst blacks and Mexicans in the city reached over 40%. The Republican political machine in Chicago was utterly destroyed by the economic crisis, and every mayor since 1931 in Chicago has been a Democrat. There has not been a Republican mayor in Chicago since 1931. Now, from 1928 to 1933, the city witnessed a tax revolt, and the city was unable to meet payroll or provide any relief efforts. The fiscal crisis was resolved by 1933, and at the same time, federal relief funding began to flow into Chicago. Chicago was also a hotbed of labor activism, with the unemployed councils contributing heavily in the early Depression to create solidarity for the poor and demand relief. No, I'm not. Now, these organizations were created by socialist and communist groups. Nope, my mom's dead, so no. These organizations were created by socialist and communist groups. By 1935, the Workers' Alliance of America began organizing the poor, workers, and the unemployed. In the spring of 1937, Republic Steel Works witnessed the Memorial Day Massacre of 1937 in the neighborhood on the east side of Chicago. Now, in 1933, that was when Franklin Roosevelt was elected. So in 1933, Chicago Mayor Antin Cermak was fatally wounded in Miami, Florida, during a failed assassination attempt on the then President-elect Franklin Roosevelt. But in 1933 and 1934, the city celebrated its centennial. You just choose not to. The city celebrated its centennial by hosting the Century of Progress International Exposition World's Fair. The theme of the fair was technological innovation over the centuries since. I am not. Now, the theme of the fair was technological innovation over the centuries since Chicago's founding. Now, from 1940 to 1979, during World War II, the city of Chicago alone produced more steel than the United Kingdom every year from 1939 to 1945, and more than Nazi Germany from 1943 to 1945. The Great Migration, which had been on pause due to the Great Depression, resumed at an even faster pace in the second wave, as hundreds of thousands of blacks from the South arrived in the city to work the steel mills, railroads, and shipping yards. Now, on December 2nd of 1942, physicist Enrico Fermi conducted the world's first controlled nuclear reaction at the University of Chicago. as part of the top secret Manhattan Project. Now, this led to the creation of the atomic bomb by the United States, which was used during World War II in 1945. Now, Mayor Richard Daley, Richard J. Daley, the father, was elected mayor in 1955. In the era of machine politics, in 1956, the city conducted its last major expansion when it annexed the land under the O'Hare Airport, including a small portion of DuPage County. Now, by the 1960s, while residents in several neighborhoods left the city for the suburban areas, in many American cities, a process known as a white flight, as blacks continued to move beyond the Black Belt, while home loan discriminatory redlining against blacks continued, the real estate industry practiced what became known as blockbusting, completely changing the racial composition of whole neighborhoods. Now, structural changes in industry, such as globalization and job outsourcing, caused heavy losses for the lower skilled workers. And at its peak during the 1960s, some 250,000 workers were employed in the steel industry in Chicago. But the steel crisis of the 1970s and 80s reduced this number to just about 28,000 in 2015. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. and Albert Raby led Albert Raby, I don't know how you say his name, R-A-B-Y, led the Chicago Freedom Movement, which culminated in agreements between the mayor, Richard J. Daley, and the movement leaders. Now, 2 years later, the city hosted the tumultuous 1968 Democratic National Convention, which featured physical confrontations on both sides and outside the convention hall with anti-war protesters. Journalists and bystanders being beaten by police. Major construction projects, including the Sears Tower, now known as the Willis Tower, which I still call it the Sears Tower. I don't give a fuck what they changed the name to. I'm still going to call it Sears Tower because that's what I know it as. Which Sears Tower became, which was the most tallest building. Then you had the University of Illinois at Chicago, McCormick Place, and O'Hare International Airport were undertaken during Richard J. Daley's tenure. I've been to the McCormick Place, and the McCormick Place in Chicago is the biggest place where they do the car show at every year. So every year, McCormick Place hosts a car show where you get to see new and old cars they don't make anymore. It's a great place to go to if you're ever in the city of Chicago to go check it out. Now, in 1979, Jane Bryn, the city's first female mayor, was elected. She was notable for temporarily moving into the crime-ridden Cabrini Green housing project, and I don't think Cabrini Green is even around anymore. I think they tore that place down. And for leading Chicago's school system out of a financial crisis. Oh shit. Okay. Now you go to 1980 to now. In 1983, Harold Washington became the first black mayor of Chicago. Harold Washington's first term in office directed attention to poor and previously neglected minority neighborhoods. As you can see on my channel, I'm Rusty the King. That's just Rusty is just a shortened version of my middle name. Now, even though Harold Washington was reelected in 1987, but shortly soon after, he died of a heart attack, and they had to and eventually they had to pick Now, after Harold Washington's death, he was succeeded by the Sixth Ward alderman person Eugene Sawyer, who was elected by the Chicago City Council, and he served until a special election could be held. In 1989, Richard M. Daley, the son of Richard J. Daley, was elected as mayor in 1989. His accomplishments included improvements to parks and creating incentives for sustainable development. As well, he closed Meigs Field in the middle of the night and destroying the runaways. After successfully running for re-election 5 different times and becoming Chicago's longest-serving mayor, Richard M. Daley declined to run for a 7th term. He served 6 terms and then stepped down. Each term for a mayor, I think, is 3 years. So you get reelected as mayor every 3 years, and I think he served like 20-something years, and each term being 3 years, and so he had 6 terms as a mayor. So in 1992, a construction accident near the Kinzie Street Bridge produced a breach connecting the Chicago River to a tunnel below, which was part of an abandoned freight tunnel system extending throughout the downtown Loop district of Chicago. The tunnels filled with 250 million U.S. gallons of water, affecting the buildings throughout the district and forcing a shutdown of electrical power. Now, the area was shut down for 3 days, and some buildings did not reopen for weeks. And the loss of money was estimated to be $1.95 billion during that time. On February 23rd of 2011, Rahm Emanuel, a former White House Chief of Staff member of the House of Representatives, won mayor. Rahm Emanuel was sworn in as mayor on May 16th of 2011 and won re-election in 2015. But Lori Lightfoot, the city's first openly gay woman, was elected mayor, and its first for mayor anyway. She was openly gay. Who was elected to succeed Rahm Emanuel as mayor of 2019. All three citywide elective offices were held by women and a woman of color for the first time in Chicago. In addition to Lightfoot, the city clerk was Anna Valencia, and the city treasurer was Melissa Conyers Urban. On May 15th of 2023, Brandon Johnson assumed office as the 57th mayor of Chicago, and with Brandon Johnson, he has the worst approval rating as mayor for Chicago. This is a very popular place to see. This is the Chicago skyline. This picture is the Chicago skyline. So this is the Chicago skyline in Chicago. You also have the Magnificent Mile in Chicago. I don't know if there's a picture of that on here. This is an aerial view of the Chicago Loop in 2012. Down here is part of Lake Michigan. That's on the north side portion. Docket today is Chicago, where I was born and raised at. So when it comes to topography, Chicago is located in northeastern Illinois on the southwestern shores of freshwater Lake Michigan. It is the principal city in the Chicago metropolitan area, situated in both the Midwestern United States and the Great Lakes region. The city rests on a continental divide at the site of the Chicago Portage, connecting the Mississippi River and the Great Lakes watershed. In addition to it lying beside Lake Michigan, 2 rivers, the Chicago River in downtown and the Calumet River in the industrial far south side, they flow either entirely or partially throughout the city. I am from the Addison and the Addison area. Not the town, but the street Addison. Now, Chicago's history and economy are closely tied to its proximity to Lake Michigan. Yep. Now, while the Chicago River historically handled much of the region's waterborne cargo, today's huge lake freighters use the city's Lake Calumet Harbor on the south side. The lake also provides another positive effect, moderating Chicago's climate, making waterfront neighborhoods slightly warmer in winter and cooler in the summer. Yes, I moved back last year. Now, when Chicago when Chicago was founded in 1837, most of the early building was around most of the early building around that area was around the mouth of the Chicago River, as can be seen on the map of the city's original 58 blocks before they started incorporating more areas. No, I do not know how to speak any other language other than English. Now, the overall grade of the city's central built-up areas is relatively consistent with the natural flatness of its overall natural geography, generally exhibiting only slight differentiation otherwise. Not too bad. Just started back up my college classes. Nope, I don't even know what that means. Now, the average land elevation in Chicago is 579 feet above sea level, while measurements vary somewhat. The lowest points are along the lake shore at 578 degrees, 578 feet, while the highest point at 672. I don't know. I don't even know what. This is coffee, pumpkin flavored coffee from Dunkin' Donuts. I just wish I had some alcohol in it, because you know that's what they're going to be having pretty soon. Well, okay, so the highest point is 672, and that is the Moreno Ridge of Blue Island on the city's far south side. Lakeshore Drive runs adjacent to a large portion of Chicago's waterfront, and some of the parks along the waterfront include Lincoln Park, Grant Park, Burnham Park, and Jackson Park. There are 24 public beaches in Chicago alone. So there are 24 public beaches across 26 miles of the waterfront. Landfill extends into portions of the lake, providing space for Navy Pier, Northerly Island, the museum campus, and large portions of the McCormick Place Convention Center, which, like I said, is where they do the car shows every year. Most of the city's high-rise commercial and residential buildings are close to the waterfront. Yes, I scored pretty high on my IQ test. An informal name for the entire Chicago metropolitan area is known as Chicagoland, which generally means the city and all of its suburbs, though different organizations have slightly different definitions of it. Now, major sections of the city include the central business district called the Loop, and the north, south, and west side of Chicago. The three sides of the city are represented on the flag of Chicago by three horizontal white stripes. Now, the north side is the most densely populated residential section of the city, and many high rises are located on this side of the city along the lakefront. The south side is the largest section of the city, encompassing roughly 60% of the city's land. And the south side contains most of the facilities of the Port of Chicago. I'm gonna be actually doing a movie next month, so I'm gonna make some money off of that possibly. So once that movie comes out, then I'd hopefully get more auditions for other ones. In the late 1920s, sociologists at the University of Chicago subdivided the city into 77 distinct community areas, which can further be subdivided into over 200 informally defined neighborhoods in itself. I'm going to be playing a cop. Yes, the stream is real. Of course, why wouldn't it be? Chicago streets were laid out on a street grid that grew from the city's original town site plot. Never been. Never been to Pakistan. Which was bounded by Lake Michigan on the east, North Avenue on the north, and Wood Street on the west, and 22nd Street on the south. The streets following the public land survey system section lines later became arterial streets and outlying sections as new additions to the city were plotted. Um, okay, so as new additions to the city were plotted, city ordinance required them to be laid out with 8 streets to the mile in one direction and 16 in the other. Um, no, I actually have family members that are gay. Um, so about 1 street per 200 meters in one direction and 1 street per 100 meters in another direction. Um, the grid's regularity provided an efficient means of developing new real estate property. A scattering of diagonal streets, many of them originally on Native American trails, also crossed the city: Elston, Milwaukee, Ogden, Lincoln, etc. And many additional diagonal streets were recommended in the plan of Chicago, but only the extension of Ogden Avenue was ever constructed. No, I am not. Um, the only bad thing about Chicago when you're actually driving through there, I would say the museums or the zoos. There's a lot of good places out there to see. No, I've never heard about the Seattle Underground. Best places in Chicago, like I say, are like McCormick Place, which is where they do the car show. Last week, I went to Brookfield Zoo and the Museum of Science and Industry. Those were good places to go to. Um, then you have the Art Museum. You also have there also is now the one thing I bitch about when it comes to Chicago is the parking, and how you have to park when you go to downtown Chicago. You either have to parallel park or diagonal park. That's the only bad thing about Chicago is diagonal parking or basically knowing how to parallel park. Now in 2021, Chicago was ranked the fourth most walkable large city in the United States, and many of the city's residential streets have a wide patch of grass or trees between the street and the sidewalk itself. Now this helps to keep pedestrians on the sidewalk further away from street traffic. And Chicago's Western Avenue is the longest continuous urban street in the world. Other notable streets include Michigan Avenue, State Street, 95th Street, Cicero Avenue, Clark Street, and Belmont Avenue. The City Beautiful movement inspired Chicago's boulevards and parkways. Um, Now, let's turn this up a little bit. I think. Let's see if you guys can all hear me. I didn't think I had the volume turned up all the way. I don't know if you guys if you can hear me better now. Um, Now the destruction caused by the Great Chicago Fire led to the largest building boom in the history of the nation. In 1885, the first steel-framed high-rise building, the Home Insurance Building, um, rose in the city of Chicago, ushered in the skyscraper era. Um, um, and then it would be followed. Then it would be followed by many other cities around the world. Today, Chicago skyline is among the world's tallest and densest area in Chicago. Um, Now, some of the United States' tallest towers are located in Chicago. Um, Sears Tower is the second tallest building in the Western Hemisphere after One World Trade Center, and the Trump International Hotel and Tower is the third largest in the country. The Loop's historic buildings include the Chicago Board of Trade, the Fine Arts Building, 35 East Wacker, and the Chicago Building, which is and the 860 to 880 Lakeshore Drive apartments by Mies van der Rohe, and about nine. It's about 9 million people. Um, um, Many other architects have left their impression on the Chicago skyline, such as Daniel Burnham, Louis Sullivan, Charles B. Atwood, John Root, and Helmut John. Um, Now, the Merchandise Mart, which is one of the largest buildings in the world, had its own zip code in Chicago in 2008, and it stands near the junction of the north and south branches of the Chicago River. Now, presently, the four tallest buildings in the city are Willis Tower, which is known as the Sears Tower. Like I said, I still call it Sears Tower, and that building also had its own zip code. Trump International Hotel and Tower, the Aon Center, previously the Standard Oil Building, and the John Hancock Building. Industrial districts such as some areas on the south side and the areas along the Chicago Sanitary and Shipping Canal and the Northwest Indiana area are all clustered. Um, Chicago gave its name to the Chicago School and was home to the Prairie School, two movements in architecture. Multiple kinds and scales of houses, townhomes, and condominiums and apartment buildings can be found throughout Chicago. Yes, it did. The Sears Tower. The Sears Tower has been known as the Willis Tower for the last 10 years at least. Um, I've been inside the Sears Tower once. I still call it Sears Tower. I never call it Willis Tower, even though that's what they call it now. So Chicago gave its name to the Chicago, like I said, to the the Chicago School, and was home to the Prairie School. Um, Actually, this is Wikipedia on my computer. Um, I also use this computer for my classes too, for when I do my studying for my classes. Yeah, I know. It confuses me too. There's going to be a couple other names that are going to be changing. They even changed the name of that one hospital where the kids were dying of cancer, St. Jude's. Um, now it's not called St. Jude's anymore. I forget what the hell the name of it is now, but it's not called St. Jude's anymore. Um, or was it Now, large swaths of the city's residential areas away from the lake are characterized by brick bungalows. Built from the early 20th century throughout the end of World War II, Chicago is a prominent center of the Polish cathedral style of church architecture. The Chicago suburb of Oak Park was home to the famous architect Frank Lloyd Wright, who had designed the Robbie House located near the University of Chicago. A popular tourist activity is to take an architecture boat ride along the Chicago River, which they do have them. Chicago has a lot of outdoor public artwork, with donors establishing funding for such art as far back as the Benjamin Ferguson's 1905 Trust Fund. A number of Chicago's public art works were by modern figuratives such as figurative artists. Yes, I've been on a boat ride in Chicago and it's very fun. Um, it takes you along Lake Michigan. It is pricey. I think the last time I checked, it was about $70 a ride. Um, so among these are Chagall's Four Seasons, the Chicago Picasso, Miro's Chicago, Calder's Flamingo. Yes, he is. He designed some beautiful buildings. Um, um, the Oldenburg's Bet column, Moore's large interior form, 1953 to 1954, a man enters the cosmos and nuclear energy. DeBuffet's monument with standing beast, Abakanawic's Agora, and Anish Kapoor's Cloud Gate, which is the Bean, which has become an icon of the city, which I still don't understand that. Some events which shaped the city's history have also been memorialized by artworks including the Great Northern Migration, SAR, and the Centennial of Statehood for Illinois family. Two fountains near the Loop also function as monumental works of art. Plaza's Crown Fountain, as well as Burnham and Bennett's Buckingham Palace fountain. Now let's go look. Let's go look here. The Cloud Gate. I think that's the Bean. I'll tell you this in a minute. Yeah, this right here. I do not see the fascination with this. This is Cloud Gate, also known as the Bean, is a very popular thing in Chicago, and I still do not know why it's even popular. Yes. Speaking of that, me and my roommate are going to be starting a podcast next year. I already got the equipment for it. I just need to hook it up, and figure out from there who we're going to interview and what we're going to do. Um, yeah, I still have not figured out what the Bane is so popular in Chicago. Don't ask me that one. Yep. Um, now the city mostly lies within the typical hot summer, humid continental climate, and experiences four distinct seasons. Summers are hot and humid with frequent heat waves, which I've experienced that this year. The July daily average temperature is 75.4, with afternoon temperatures peaking at 84 degrees. In a normal summer, temperatures can reach as high as 90 degrees. On 17 different days, with lakefront locations staying cooler when wind blows off the lake. Um, now winters can be relatively cold and snowy. Blizzards do occur, such as the winter blizzard of 2011 in Chicago. Um, there are many sunny but cold days. The normal winter high from December through March is about 36 degrees. And January and February are the coldest months. A polar vortex in January of 2019 nearly broke the city's record of a negative 27 degrees, um, which was set on January 20th of 1985. Measurable snowfall could continue throughout the first or second week of April. Right now, this is already October, and it's still pretty much warm. In October, you usually think it would be cold because you're hitting close to winter, and all this week in Chicago, it's been nothing but 60-something degrees. Another good place to visit is the Shedd Aquarium in Chicago, and that is an aquarium for aquatic animals. They have dolphins, whales, fish, sharks, stingrays. Also, that's pretty cool to see. Um, Now, spring and autumn are mild, short seasons, typically with low humidity. Dew point temperatures in the summer range from an average of 55 degrees in June. Um, it can be 55 degrees in June to 61 degrees in July. Um, they can reach nearly 80 degrees Fahrenheit, such as during the July 2019 heat wave. The city lies within the USDA plant has hardiness zone 6A, transitioning to 5B in the suburbs. Now, according to the National Weather Service, Chicago's highest official temperature reading of 105 degrees Fahrenheit was recorded on July 24th of 1934. Midway Airport reached 109 degrees Fahrenheit one day prior and recorded a heat index of 125 degrees Fahrenheit. No, Obama was born in Hawaii, but he lived in Chicago. I don't. He was not. Well, you could say yes. He was born in Hawaii, but lived in Chicago at one point when he was serving as senator. Um, during the 1995 heat wave, I've been to Midway Airport, and that area gets busy. Now, the lowest official temperature of negative 27 degrees was recorded on January 20th of 1985 at O'Hare Airport. Now, most of the city's rainfall is brought by thunderstorms, averaging 38 thunderstorms a year. The region is prone to several thunderstorms during the spring and summer, which can produce large hail, damaging winds, and occasionally a tornado. Now, notably, the F4 Oak Lawn tornado moved through the south side of the city on April 21st of 1967, moving onto Lake Michigan as a waterspout. Downtown Chicago was struck by an F3 tornado on May 6, 1876, again moving out over Lake Michigan. Like other major cities, Chicago experiences an urban heat island. Like other major cities, Chicago experiences an urban heat island. making the city and its suburbs milder than surrounding rural areas, especially at night and in winter. The proximity to Lake Michigan tends to keep the Chicago lakefront somewhat cooler in summer and less brutally cold in winter than in inland parts of the city and suburbs away from the lake, which is sufficient to give lakefront areas such as Northerly Island a humid subtropical climate using Köppen's 27 degrees negative height winter isotherm, as opposed to the firmly continental climate of inland areas such as Midway and international airports. Yes, I am from Chicago. So yes, that is America. There's a statue thing outside Midway. I have to see if I can find a picture of that, and that looks pretty cool too. I have never been to O'Hare, so I don't know what's around there. Even though those areas are still continental, under the tree worth due to winters averaging below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Northeast winds from wintertime cyclones departing south of the region sometimes bring the city lake effect snow. Some Americans can, only because Mexicans are moving in to America. I do not. No, they actually, now they actually made it a law to where you can buy a gun without having to have a permit or a license for it. As in the rest of the state of Illinois, Chicago forms part of the Central Time Zone. The border with the Eastern Time Zone is located a short distance to the east, used in Michigan and certain parts of Indiana. No, it's actually noon in my country. Like, it just hit noon. During its first 100 years, Chicago was one of the fastest growing cities in the world. When founded in 1833, fewer than 200 people had settled on what was then the American frontier. By the time of its first census, 7 years later, the population had reached over 400,000 people, and in the 40 years from 1850 to 1890, the city's population grew from slightly under 30,000 to over 1 million people. I've never been to India, so I wouldn't know. I don't know what you guys do out there. I don't know what your biggest thing is. Now, at the end of the 19th century, Chicago was the second most populous city in the world behind New York City, and the largest of the cities that did not exist at the dawn of the century. Within 60 years of the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, the population went from about 300,000 people to over 3 million. And it reached its highest ever recorded population of 3.6 million people for the 1950 census. From the last 2 decades of the 19th century, Chicago was the destination of waves of immigrants from Ireland, Southern, Central, and Eastern Europe, including Italians, Jewish people, Russians, Polish people, Greeks, Lithuanians, Bulgarians, Albanians, Romanians, Turks, Croatians, Serbians, Bosnians, Montenegrins, and Czechoslovakians. To these ethnic groups, the basis of the city's industrial working class were added an additional influx of African Americans from the American South as part of the Great Migration, with Chicago's black population doubling between 1910 and 1920, and doubling again between 1920 and 1930. Chicago has a significant Bosnian population, many of whom arrived during the 1990s and 2000s. I am from Chicago. In the 1920s and 30s, the great majority of African Americans moving to Chicago settled in something called the so-called Black Belt on the city's south side of Chicago. A large number of blacks also settled on the west side of Chicago. By 1930, 2/3 of Chicago's black population lived in sections of the city which were about 90% black in racial composition. Never been to London. Around that time, a lesser known fact about African Americans on the north side is that the block of 4600 Winthrop Avenue in Uptown was the only block African Americans could live or open establishments in, which to be honest is not really fair. Now, Chicago's South Side emerged as the United States' second largest urban black concentration, following New York's Harlem. In 1990, Chicago's South Side and the adjoining South suburbans constituted the largest black majority region in the entire United States. Um, since the 1980s, Chicago has had a massive exodus of African Americans, primarily from the south and west side to its suburban or outside its metropolitan area. Now, the above average crime and cost of living were leading reasons for the fast declining African American population in Chicago because people were leaving due to the high rate in crime. Um, um, most of Chicago's foreign-born population were born in Mexico, Poland, or India. Um, a 2020 study estimated the total Jewish population of Chicago as both religious and irreligious at 319,500. Speaking of Jewish, I am Jewish. That's my religion. Um, Chicago's population declined in the latter half of the 20th century from over 3.6 million in 1950 down to about 2.7 million by 2010. By the time of the official census count in 1990, it was overtaken by Los Angeles as the United States' second largest city. Um, According to U.S. Census estimates as of July 2019, Chicago's largest racial or ethnic group is a non-Hispanic white at 32.8% of the population, blacks at 30%, and the Hispanic population at 29% of that. Um, Chicago Chicago has the third largest LGBTQ population in the United States. In 2018, the Chicago Department of Health estimated about 7.5% of the adult population, approximately 146,000 Chicagoans, were LGBTQ. I don't give a fuck if they are. That's their business. Um, since 2013 legalization of the same-sex marriage in Illinois, over 10,000 same-sex couples have wed in Cook County, a majority of them being in Chicago. Chicago became a de jure sanctuary city in 2012 when Mayor Rahm Emanuel and the city council passed a welcome in city ordinance. No, Allah does not belong in America. According to the U.S. Census Bureau's American Community Survey data estimates for 2022, the median income per household in the city is $70,386 for Chicago, and the per capita income was $46,000. Males who worked full time had a median income of $70,000 versus $61,000 for women. Because it is kind of early, some people do their live streams later on. About 17.2% of the population lives below the poverty line. In 2018, Chicago ranked 7th globally for the highest number of ultra high net worth residents, with roughly 3,300 residents that are worth over three. Okay, so in the state of Chicago, like state of Illinois and in Chicago, only 3,300 residents are worth more than $30 million in Chicago. According to the 22 American Community Survey, the specific ancestral groups having 10,000 or more persons in Chicago were Mexican. And then you got these. And you got this right here. And then let's go to religion. According to a 2014 study by the Pew Research Center, Christianity is the most prevalently practiced religion in Chicago at 71%. With the city being the fourth most religious metropolis in the United States after Dallas, Atlanta, and Houston. Roman Catholicism and Protestantism are the largest branches, 34 and 35% respectively, followed by Eastern Orthodox and Jehovah's Witness with 1% each. And then Chicago has a sizable non-Christian population also. Non-Christian groups include irreligious, meaning you don't identify with any religion, 22%. Of Judaism, 3%, Islam, 2%, Buddhism and Hinduism at 1%. Chicago is the headquarters of several of several religious denominations, including the Evangelical Covenant Church and the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. It is the seat of several dioceses. The Fourth Presbyterian Church is one of the largest Presbyterian congregations in the United States based on the membership that they have there. Since the 20th century of Chicago has also been the headquarters of the Assyrian Church of the East. In 2014, the Catholic Church was the largest individual Christian denomination at 34%, with the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Chicago being the largest Catholic jurisdiction. Now, evangelical Protestantism formed the largest theological Protestant branch at 16%, followed by the mainland Protestants at 11%, and historically the black churches at 8%. Among denominational Protestant branches, Baptists formed the largest group in Chicago, 10%, followed by non-denominational at 5%, Lutherans at 4%, and Pentecostals at 3%. Non-Christian faith accounted for 7% of the religious population in 2014. Judaism has at least 261,000 adherents, which is 3% of the population. A 2020 study estimated that the total Jewish population of the Chicago metropolitan area are both religious and irreligious at 319,500. Now speaking of Chicago, the new pope that just got nominated, that just got nominated and sworn into the pope position, the pope is also from Chicago, the new one that we got now. Now, the first two parliaments of the world's religions in 1893 and also going up to 1993 were held in Chicago. Many international religious leaders have visited Chicago, including Mother Teresa, the Dalai Lama, and Pope John Paul II. In 1979, Pope Leo was born in Chicago in 1955, and he graduated. I think that's the one that just got reelected. I think that's the one that just got nominated, Pope Leo. Yep, this is the guy. This is the one that just got nominated. He just got sworn in on May 8th of 2025. This is already October. Yeah, so Pope Leo is the one that was just born in Chicago, and he just got sworn in as the Pope back in May. And he's the first Pope to ever be born in Chicago, or the United States in general. When it comes to Chicago's economy, Chicago has the third largest gross metropolitan product in the United States, about $670.5 billion, according to September of 2017 estimates. The city has also been rated as having the most balanced economy in the United States due to its high level of diversification. The Chicago metropolitan area has the third largest science and engineering workforce of any metropolitan area in the nation. Nope, not even close. That's not going to happen. Chicago is a major world financial center, with the second largest central business district in the United States, following Midtown Manhattan. The city is the seat of the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, the bank's 7th district. The city has major financial and futures exchanges, including the Chicago Stock Exchange, the Chicago Board Options Exchange, and the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, known as the MERC. Nope. Which is owned along with the Chicago Board of Trade by Chicago CME Group. In 2017, the Chicago Exchange has traded $4.7 billion in derivatives. Chase Bank has its commercial and retail banking headquarters in Chicago's Chase Tower. Academically, Chicago has been influential through the Chicago School of Economics, which fielded 12 Nobel Prize winners. The city and its surrounding metropolitan area contain the third largest labor pool in the United States, with about 4.63 million workers. Illinois is home to 66 Fortune 1000 companies, including those in Chicago. The city of Chicago also hosts 12 Fortune Global 500 companies and 17 Financial Times 500 companies. The city claims 3 Del 30 companies, aerospace giant Boeing, which moved its headquarters from Seattle to the Chicago Loop. No. To the Chicago Loop in 2001. McDonald's and Walgreens Boots Alliance for 6 consecutive years from 2013 to 2018. Chicago was ranked the nation's top metropolitan area for corporate relocations. Now, however, 3 Fortune 500 companies left Chicago in 2022, leaving the city with 35, which is still second to New York City. Manufacturing, printing, publishing, and food processing also play major roles in the city's economy. Several medical products and services service companies are based in the Chicagoland area, including Baxter International, Boeing, Abbott Laboratories, and the healthcare division of General Electric. I don't know if you would consider this evening or not, because right now it's still early in the morning. Now, prominent food companies based in Chicago include the world headquarters of Conagra, the Ferrera Candy Company, Kraft Heinz, McDonald's, Mondelez International, and Quaker Oats. Chicago has been a hub of the retail sector since its early development, with Montgomery Ward, Sears, and Marshall Fields. Now, today, the Chicago metropolitan area is the headquarters of several retailers, including Walgreens, Sears, Ace Hardware, Claire's, Ulta Beauty, and Crate & Barrel. Now, late in the 19th century, Chicago was part of the bicycle craze, with the Western Wheel Company, which introduced stamping to the production process and significantly reduced costs. Now, while early in the 20th century, the city was part of the automobile revolution, hosting the brass-era car builder Bugmobile, which was founded there in 1907, and Chicago is also the site of the Schwinn Bicycle Company. Now, Chicago is a major world convention destination. The city's main convention center is the McClure Place, where like I said, where they do the car shows every year, with its 4 interconnected buildings, and it is the largest convention center in the nation and the 3rd largest in the world. Chicago ranks 3rd in the U.S. behind Las Vegas and Orlando, Florida, in number of conventions hosted annually. Chicago's minimum wage for non-tipped employees is one of the highest in the nation, and it was raised to $15 an hour back in 2021. Now here is an aerial view of Navy Pier, located on the Streeterville area. So right here is Navy Pier, and then you got the Ferris wheel right here. I walked past the Ferris wheel back in June. Now, when it comes to Chicago, the city's waterfront location and nightlife attracts residents and tourists alike. Over a third of the city population is concentrated in the lakefront neighborhoods from Rogers Park in the north to the South Shore in the south. The city has many upscale dining establishments, like restaurants, as well as many ethnic restaurant districts. These districts include the Mexican-American neighborhood, such as Pilsen along 18th Street. You also got La Billolita along 26th Street, the Puerto Rican enclave of Paseo and Humboldt Park neighborhood, Greek Town along South Halsted Street, immediately west of downtown, Little Italy along Taylor Street, Chinatown and Armour Square, Polish Patches in West Town, Little Seoul, and Albany Park around Lawrence Avenue, Little Vietnam near Broadway and Uptown, and the Desi area along Devon Avenue and West Ridge, and those are like restaurants, but different ethnicities of restaurants. Now, downtown Chicago is the center of Chicago's financial, cultural, government, and commercial institutions and the site of Grant Park and many of the city's skyscrapers. Now, many of the city's financial institutions, such as the CBOT and the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, are located within that section of downtown called the Loop, which is an 8 block by 5 block area of city streets that is encircled by elevated rail tracks. Now the term loop the loop in Chicago was largely used by locals to refer to the entire downtown area as well. These areas contribute to famous skyscrapers, abundant residents, shopping, museums, Soldier Field, which is where the Chicago Bears play, convention facilities, parkland, and beaches. Um, Now, Lincoln Park contains Lincoln Park Zoo and Lincoln Park Conservatory. The River North Gallery District features the nation's largest concentration of contemporary art galleries outside of New York. Lakeview is home to Boys Town, the city's largest LGBTQ nightlife and culture center. The Chicago Pride Parade, which is held on the last Sunday in June, as one of the world's largest, with over 1 million people in attendance. North Halsted Street is the main thoroughfare of Boys Town. The South Side neighborhood of Hyde Park is the home of former U.S. President Barack Obama, and it contains the University of Chicago and ranked one of the world's top 10 universities. And the Museum of Science and Industry is also there. The 6-mile long Burnham Park stretches along the waterfront of the South Side. Two of the city's largest parks are also located on this side of the city. Jackson Park, bordering the waterfront, hosted the World's Columbian Expedition in 1893, and is the site of the aforementioned museum. And slightly west sits Washington Park. Now, the two parks themselves are connected by a wide strip of parkland called the Midway Plaisance, running adjacent to the University of Chicago. The South Side hosts one of the city's largest parades, the annual African American Billiken Parade and the Picnic, which travels through Brownsville's Washington Park. Ford Motor Company has an automobile assembly plant on the South Side in Hegewisch, and most of the facilities of the ports of Chicago are also on the South Side. The West Side holds the Garfield Park Conservatory, one of the largest collections of tropical plants in any U.S. city. Prominent Latino cultural attractions found here include Humboldt Park's Institute of Puerto Rican Arts and Culture and the annual Puerto Rican People's Parade, as well as the National Museum of Mexican Arts and St. Albert's Church in Pilsen. The near West Side holds the University of Illinois at Chicago and was once home to Oprah Winfrey's Harpo Studios, the site of which has been rebuilt as the global headquarters of McDonald's. The city's distinctive accent, made famous by its use in classic films like the Blues Brothers, and television programs like Saturday Night Live skit Bill Swirsky's Superfans, is an advanced form of the inland Northern American English. This dialect can also be found in other cities bordering the Great Lakes, such as Cleveland, Milwaukee, Detroit, and Buffalo, and New York, and most prominently features a rearrangement of certain vowel sounds, such as the short A sound, as in cat, which can sound more like kiat to outsiders. The accent remains well associated within the city. Now, this is a popular place in Chicago. I've never been in, but I've walked past it when I went to go get my ID in Chicago. This is the Chicago Theater, where they do a lot of acting plays. I wouldn't mind going to check that out one day. The Chicago Theater. Also in Chicago, you also have the ABC studios, and you also have something for ESPN out there too, for ESPN for the Chicagoland area. So for entertainment, you have the renowned Chicago theater companies include the Goodman Theater in the Loop, the Steppenwolf Theater Company, and Victory Gardens Theater in Lincoln Park, and the Chicago Shakespeare Theater at Navy Pier. Broadway in Chicago offers Broadway-style entertainment at 5 theaters like the Nederlander Theater, the CIBC Theater, Cadillac Palace Theater, Auditorium Building at the Roosevelt University, and Broadway Playhouse at Waters Howard Place. Polish language productions for Chicago's largest Polish-speaking population can be seen at the historic Gateway Theater in Jefferson Park. Now, since 1968, the Joseph Jefferson Awards are given annually to acknowledge excellence in theater in the Chicago area. Chicago's Theater Company, Chicago's theater community spawned modern and professional theater and includes the prominent groups the second city in IO, formerly Improv Olympic. Um, the Chicago Symphony Orchestra performs at Symphony Center and is recognized as one of the best orchestras in the world. Not interested because I'm not into classical music like that. Um, Also performing regularly at Symphony Center is Chicago Sinfonita, a more diverse and multicultural counterpart to the CSO. Um, in the summer, many outdoor concerts are given at Grant Park and Millennium Park. Marina Festival, located 25 miles north of Chicago, is the summer home of the CSO and is a favorite destination for many Chicagoans. The Civic Opera House is home to the Lyric Opera of Chicago. Not into opera either. That to me is considered torture music. The Lithuanian Opera Company of Chicago was founded by Lithuanian Chicagoans in 1956, and it represents operas in Lithuanian. Um, um, the Joffrey Ballet and Chicago Festival Ballet perform in various venues, including the Harris Theater and Millennium Park. Chicago has several other contemporary and jazz dance troupes, such as the Hubbard Street Dance Chicago and the Chicago Dance Crash. Um, other live music genre which are part of the city's cultural heritage include Chicago blues, Chicago soul music, jazz, and gospel. The city is the birthplace of house music, a popular form of electronic dance music and industrial music, and is the site of an influential hip hop scene because a lot of rappers have come out of Chicago too. Um, in the 1980s and 1990s, the city was the global center for house and industrial music, two forms of music which were created in Chicago, as well as being popular for alternative rock, punk, and a new wave style music. The city has been a center for rave culture since the 1980s. A flourishing independent rock music culture brought forth Chicago indie music. Annual festivals featuring various acts such as Lollapalooza and the Pitchfork Music Festival. I've heard of Lollapalooza but never been there. Lollapalooza originated in Chicago in 1991 and at first traveled to many cities, but as of 2005, Lollapalooza has made its home at Chicago. In 2007, part of the Chicago music industry by the University of Chicago Culture Policy Center ranked Chicago third among metropolitan U.S. areas as size of music in the size of music industry, and fourth among all U.S. cities in number of concerts and performances every year. Um, um, Now, Chicago has a distinctive fine art tradition. For much of the 20th century, it nurtured a strong style of figurative surrealism, as in the works of Ivan Albright and Ed Paschke. In 1968 and 1969, members of the Chicago Imagists such as Roger Brown, Leon Golub, Robert Lofstadter, Jim Nutt, and Barbara Rossi produced bizarre representational paintings. Henry Darger is one of the most populated figures of outsider art. Now, if you like I said, Lake Michigan offers boat rides, and you can see that here. Right here, you see a boat going down Lake Michigan. Now, ferries offer sightseeing tours and water taxi transportation along the Chicago River and Lake Michigan. I've been on a boat on Lake Michigan about 20 something years ago. It was back in the 90s. I think it was the one and only time I've ever been on one. Now, in 2014, Chicago attracted 50 million domestic leisure travelers, 11 million domestic business travelers, and 1.3 million overseas visitors that visited the Chicagoland area. Now, these visitors contributed more than $13 billion to Chicago's economy. Upscale shopping along the Magnificent Mile and State Street, thousands of restaurants, as well as Chicago's eminent architecture, continue to draw tourists. The city is the United States' third largest convention destination. A 2017 study by Walkshore ranked Chicago the sixth most walkable of 50 largest cities in the United States. Most conventions are held at McCormick Place, just south of Soldier Field. Navy Pier, located just east of Streeterville, is 3,000 feet long, and houses retail stores, restaurants, museums, exposition halls, and auditoriums. Chicago was the first city in the world to ever erect a Ferris wheel, and the Willis Tower, formerly named Sears Tower, is a popular destination for tourists. Um, Now, the museums are a big thing in Chicago. Among the city's museums are the Adler Planetarium, which, if you want to know about the solar system, um, the Field Museum of Natural History, and the Shedd Aquarium. The museum campus joins the southern section of the Grant Park, which includes the renowned Art Institute of Chicago. Buckingham Fountain anchors the downtown park along the lakefront. The University of Chicago's Institute for the Study of Ancient Cultures, West Asia and North Africa, has an extensive collection of ancient Egyptian and Near Eastern archaeological artifacts. Um, Other museums and galleries in Chicago include the Chicago History Museum, the Driehaus Museum, the Disabled Museum of African American History, the Museum of Contemporary Art, the Peggy Notebart Nature Museum, the Polish Museum of America, the Museum of Broadcast Communications, the Chicago Architecture Foundation, and the Museum of Science and Industry, which is the one I went to last week. Cuisine, which means food. Chicago lays claim to a large number of regional specialties that reflect the city's ethnic and working class roots. Included among these are a nationally renowned deep dish pizza. This style is said to have originated at the Pizzeria Uno. The Chicago-style thin crust is also popular in the city. Certain Chicago pizza favorites include Luminati's and Giordano's as being popular places to get pizza at in Chicago. Last week, I was in Chicago. I was in Downers Grove and had Giordano's for the first time. The Chicago-style hot dog, typically an all beef hot dog, is loaded with an array of toppings that include pickle, relish, yellow mustard, pickled sport peppers, tomato wedges, dill pickle spear, and topped up with celery salt on a poppy seed bun. Enthusiasts of the Chicago-style hot dog frown upon the use of ketchup as a garnish, but they may prefer to add gardenia. I don't really eat hot dogs, so I can care less what people do with that. A big Chicago sandwich that people like to buy out here is Italian beef. A distinctly Chicago sandwich, the Italian beef sandwich, is thinly sliced beef simmered in all juice and served in an Italian roll with sweet peppers or spicy gardenia. A popular modification is the combo, an Italian beef sandwich with the addition of an Italian sausage, which I have. I'm not gay, so there will be no boyfriend here. The popular modification is the combo, like I said, an Italian beef sandwich with the addition of an Italian sausage. The Maxwell Street Polish is a grilled or deep fried kielbasa on a hot dog roll topped with grilled onions, yellow mustard, and hot sport peppers. Chicken Vesuvio is also a popular thing. Is roasted bone-in chicken, and it's cooked in oil and garlic next to garlicky oven roasted potato wedges and a sprinkling of green peas. The Puerto Rican influenced jibarito is a sandwich made with flattened fried green plantains instead of bread. The mother-in-law is a tamale topped tamale topped with chili and served on a hot dog bun. The tradition of serving the Greek dish saganaki while aflame has its origins in Chicago's Greek community. The appetizer, which consists of a square of fried cheese, is dealt with metaxa and flambéed and a flambéed tableside. I do love Mexican food. Mexican food is great. I also do love my Chinese food too. Now, Chicago-style barbecue features hardwood smoked rib tips and hot links, which are traditionally cooked in an aquarium smoker at Chicago Convention. Annual festivals feature various Chicago significant dishes, such as the Taste of Chicago and the Chicago Food Truck Festival. The Taste of Chicago is actually a thing I do want to go back to, and that's where they close off all the streets in Chicago, and all the people that are different ethnicities will come out and they will cook and they will serve food. At the Taste of Chicago, and you get to try various different foods from different origins. Now, one of the world's most decorated restaurants and a recipient of the 3 Michelin stars is Elena. and it's located in Chicago, and that restaurant is hard to get into because of reservations. Well-known chefs who have had restaurants in Chicago include Charlie Trotter, Rick Tremonto, Grant Alshez, and Rick Bayless. In 2003, Rob Report named Chicago the country's most exceptional dining restaurant because they have a lot of restaurant places to choose from. Um, um, Now, Chicago literature finds its roots in the city's tradition of lucid, direct journalism, lending to a strong tradition of social realism. In the Encyclopedia of Chicago, Northwestern University professor Bill Savage describes Chicago fiction as prose to which tries to capture the essence of the city, its spaces, and its people. Um, um, yes, I don't care if you're gay, audio only. I don't care if you're gay, audio only. That's your decision. Um, at least 3 short periods in the history of Chicago have had a lasting influence on American literature. These include from the time of the Great Chicago Fire to 1900. I am not. I am not gay. I don't care if you are, audio only. At least 3 short periods in the history of Chicago have had a lasting influence on American literature. This include from the time of the Great Chicago Fire to about 1900, which and then became known as the Chicago literary Renaissance in the 1910s to early 1920s, and the period of the Great Depression through the 1940s. What would become the influential poetry magazine was founded in 1912 by Harriet Monroe, who was working as an art critic for the Chicago Tribune at that time. Now, when it comes to sports, um, yes, you are. Yes, you are, Aldi. You're boring. So here are the stadiums where sports teams play. At top here is Soldier Field. That's where the Chicago Bears play. Wrigley Field, which is where the Cubs play. United Center, which is where the Chicago Bulls play. And then Guaranteed Rate Field here is where the Sox play. And then I'm surprised they don't have SeatGeek Stadium listed. Wow. SeatGeek Stadium is where I'm surprised they don't have SeatGeek Stadium on here. That's actually a sports team too. Um, the city has 2 Major League Baseball teams: the Chicago Cubs and the National League, which play at Wrigley Field on the north side, and the Chicago White Sox in the American League that play at Wright Field on the south side of Chicago. Um, Now, when it comes to the Sox and the Chicago Cubs, they only faced each other in the World Series once, and that was back in 1906. Um, the Cubs are the oldest Major League Baseball team to have never changed their city, but they have changed their name. They have changed the names of their team over 20 different times. No, Aldi, you can go fuck yourself. Um, the Cubs, like I said, are the oldest Major League Baseball team to have never changed their city. They have played in Chicago since 1871. Um, no, Aldi, you can go fuck yourself. Um, they had the dubious honor of having the longest championship drought in American professional sports, failing to win a World Series between the years of 1908. I am not. Um, I don't care. I don't care that you're gay, Aldi. You don't have to keep announcing it. Um, Now the Cubs went from 1908 to 2015 without ever winning a World Series until they won it in 2016. I don't care. I don't care that I don't care that your father's ass is in your face and you're eating it out. I don't care. Um, the White Sox have played on the South Side continuously since 1901. Um, yeah, we got a gay troll in here named Audie. He's letting everybody know that he's gay. Um, he's letting everybody know that he's gay. I don't care that he is. Um, So when it comes to the Cubs, they won it in 2016. Now the White Sox have played on the South Side continuously since 1901, and they only won 3 World Series titles: 1906, 2017, and the last one being in 2005. Um, so the White Sox had last won the World Series in 2005. I'm not gay, so Audie, you can go fuck one of your family members because I don't have to shut up. It's my live stream, so you can go suck a dick for the time being. And 6 American League pennants, including the first in 1901. Now, the Chicago Bears are one of the last 2 remaining charter members of the National Football League (NFL), and they have won 9 NFL championships, which include the 1985 Super Bowl 10, or Super Bowl 20. That's the 2 X's. That's 20 because X is 10, and another X is 20. The Bears play their home games at Soldier Field. The Chicago Bulls of the National Basketball Association (NBA) is one of the most recognized basketball teams in the world outside of the Harlem Globetrotters, which don't play in professional sports anyway. Now, during the 1990s, Michael Jordan, leading the Bulls, led them to 6 NBA championship titles, 8 seasons. I am not. I've already stated that I'm not gay. I don't. Audie's just announcing that he's gay. He's control but no job. So the Chicago Blackhawks of the National Hockey League began playing in 1926. I am not. And are one of the original 6 teams of the NHL. The Blackhawks have won 6 Stanley Cups to date, including 2010, 2013, and 2015. And both the Bulls and the Blackhawks play at the United Center. Chicago Fire. Go fuck yourself, Audie. Go suck a dick for the time being. The only way that Audie's gonna shut the fuck up is if somebody puts a dick in his mouth. Now, Chicago Fire is a member of the Major League Soccer team, and they play at Soldier Field, or they used to, but not anymore. They play at SeatGeek Stadium now. I am not gay. I don't care that you're gay, Audie. You've already announced it 20,000 times already. I don't care that you're fucking gay. I don't care that you suck your boyfriend's dick. No, not gay at all. I have a girlfriend, but she's at work right now, so I don't care. The Fire have won only 1 league title and 4 U.S. Opens since their founding in 1997. In 1994, no, I'm not gay. Audie is the one that's gay. In 1994, the United States hosted a successful FIFA World Cup with games played at Soldier Field. No, I'm not gay, but Audie is. No, she does not. No, I am not. The Chicago Stars FC are a team in the National Women's Soccer League. I don't think that was even a team. I didn't even know they had one. Nope, not gay. Never been. They previously played in women's professional soccer. Nope. Not even close. Not gay. The Chicago Stars FC are a team like I said, in the National Women's Soccer League. I've never, nope, never even heard of that. The Chicago Sky is a professional basketball team playing in the Women's National Basketball Association of WNBA. Nope, not gay. I'm doing a live stream because I feel like it, but I'm not gay. They play their home games at the OneTrust Arena, and the team was founded before the 2006 WNBA season began. The Chicago Marathon has been held each year since 1977. Nope, not gay. Okay, Audie, I said you could do your own live stream about talking about how you love to suck dick. That's your choice. It's not gay at all. Just because I'm talking about my city of Chicago does not mean it's gay. 5 area colleges play in division. Nope, not gay at all. 5 area colleges play in Division I conferences, 2 from major conferences, the DePaul Blue Demons, Big East Conference, and the Northwestern Wildcats, Big Ten Conference. And from the Division I conferences, you got Chicago State Cougars. Nope. The Chicago State Cougars, Northeastern Conference, the Loyola Ramblers, the Atlantic 10 Conference, and the UIC Flames, Missouri Valley Conference. Now parks and green space. That's also no. No, actually, no, Audie, you did. You're assuming that I'm gay, even though I'm not. When Chicago was incorporated in 1837, it chose the motto "Urbs in Horto," a Latin phrase which means city in a garden. Nope, not gay at all. You could keep assuming, but I'm not. Now, today, the Chicago Park District consists of more than 570 parks across over 8,000 acres of municipal parkland. Nope. Not gay at all. There are 31 sand beaches, a plethora of museums, 2 world-class convention centers, conservatories, and 50 nature areas. Now, Lincoln Park, the largest of the city's parks, covers about 1,200 acres. It has over 20 million visitors each year, making it third in the number of visitors after Central Park in New York City. And the National Mall and Memorial Parks in Washington, D.C. There is a historic boulevard system, a network aid, not gay at all. There is a historic boulevard and a network of the wide tree-lined boulevards which connected a number of Chicago parks. And they were authorized by the Illinois legislature in 1869. Now, the boulevards and parks were authorized by, like I said, by Illinois legislature in 1869, sorry. A number of Chicago neighborhoods emerged along these roadways in the 19th century. Now, there's a couple of places I do want to go back to when I actually get some money saved up. I want to go back to Six Flags Great America because that's another big tourist destination in Chicago. Or actually not Chicago, but Illinois in itself. It's in Gurnee, but it's a big tourist destination in Illinois, for the amusement park. No, not even close. Now, the building of the boulevard system continued intermittently in 1942, and it includes 19 boulevards, 8 parks, and 6 squares along 26 miles of interconnected streets. Now, Now, the Chicago Park Boulevard System Historic District was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 2018. That's nobody's business. She does not like to be on screen. Now, with berths more than 6,000 boats, with berths of more than 6,000 boats, the Chicago Park District operates the nation's largest. We're talking about Chicago. Now, what now, in addition to ongoing beautification and renewal projects for the existing parks, a number of new parks have been added in recent years. No, she is definitely real. In addition to ongoing beautification and the renewal projects for the existing parks, a number of new parks have been added in recent years. And they have such as the Pingtown Memorial Park in Chinatown, DeSable Park on the near north side of Chicago, and most notably Millennium Park, which is the northwestern corner of one of Chicago's oldest parks, and Grant Park in the Chicago Loop area. Well, are you talking about the N word, like the racist N word? Are you black or no? Um, Now the wealth of green space afforded by Chicago's parks is further augmented by the Cook County Forest Reserves. Where I live at, it's a lot of forest preserve area. You could also, if they called you the N word, you can basically file a report against them. Basically, there is a way on YouTube, there's a way on YouTube. I'm not sure how you do it. Now, the wealth of green space afforded by Chicago's parks is further augmented, like I said, by the Cook County Forest Reserves. That wouldn't work because I'm not racist and I did not use any racist word. So you're gonna have to try harder. Now the wealth, like I said, the wealth of green space afforded by Chicago's parks is further augmented by the Cook County Forest Reserves, a network of open spaces containing forests, prairie, wetland streams, and lakes that are set aside as natural areas and which lie along the city's outskirts. So so including so we have the Chicago Botanic Garden in Glencoe and the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago. I went to Brookfield Zoo last week. Washington Park is also one of the city's biggest parks, covering nearly 400 acres, and the park is listed on the National Register of Historic Places listings in Chicago. And so man, let's scroll down here for a minute. Okay, so nope, not even close. Not gay at all. The government of the city of Chicago is divided into executive and legislative branches. The mayor of Chicago is the chief executive that's elected by general election for a term of 4 years with no term limits. Now, the incumbent mayor is Brandon Johnson, who has the worst approval rating, and worst approval rating for the mayor of Chicago. Obviously, he's not doing too good at all. The mayor appoints commissions and other officials who oversee various different departments. As well as the mayor, Chicago's clerk and treasurer are also elected citywide. Yes, Audie, we know you're gay. Um, the city council is the legislative branch and is made up of 50 aldermen, one elected from each ward in the city. The council takes official action throughout the passage of an ordinance and resolutions and approves the city's budget. Nope, not gay at all. The Chicago Police Department provides law enforcement, and the Chicago Fire Department provides fire suppression and emergency medical services for the city and its residents. Nope, not gay at all. I don't. The only ice I like, nope, not gay at all. So, like I said, I'm not gay, never will be. Now, civil and criminal law cases are heard in the city of Cook County Circuit Court of the state of Illinois court system, or in the Northern District of Illinois. None of your business. Now, in the federal system, the state court, the public prosecutor is the Illinois state attorney. In the federal court, it is the United States attorney. Now, during much of the last half of the 19th century, Chicago politics were dominated by a growing Democratic Party organization. During the 1880s and 1890s, Chicago had a powerful radical tradition with large and highly organized socialist, anarchist, and labor organizations. Nope, not even close. For much of the 20th century, Chicago has been among the largest and most reliable Democratic strongholds in the United States. Now, with Chicago's Democratic vote, the state of Illinois has been the solid blue in presidential elections since 1992. Even before then, it was not unheard of for Republican presidential candidates to win handily in downstate Illinois, only to lose statewide due to large Democratic margins in Chicago. No, they're not. There's nothing awesome about any Republicans. The citizens of Chicago have not elected a Republican mayor since 1927, which is good. Now, when William Thompson was voted into office, the strength of the party in the city is partly a consequence of Illinois state politics, where the Republicans have to come to represent rural and farm concerns, while the Democrat supports urban issues such as Chicago's public school funding. Now, Chicago contains less than 25% of the state's population, but it is split between 8 of Illinois' 17 districts in the United States House of Representatives. All 8 of the city's representations of representatives are Democrats. Only 2 Republicans have represented a significant portion of the city since 1973. For one term each, Robert P. Hanrahan from 1973 to 75, and Michael Patrick Flanagan from 1995 to 1997. Now, machine politics persisted in Chicago after the decline. Now, machine politics persisted in Chicago after the decline of similar machines in other areas and other large cities. Though during much of that time, the city administration found opposition mainly from a Democratic independent faction of the Democratic Party. Now, the independents. So the independents finally gained control of city government in 1983 with the election of Harold Washington in office from 83 to 27 to 1987. From 1989 until May 16 to 2011, Chicago was under the leadership of its longest-serving mayor, Richard M. Daley, the son of Richard J. Daley, because of the dominance of the Democratic Party in Chicago. Now, the Democratic primary vote held in the spring is generally more significant than the general elections in November for U.S. House and Illinois state seats. The alderman, mayoral, and other city offices are filled throughout nonpartisan elections with runoffs if needed. I'm not transgender, so I wouldn't care. Um, now the city is home of former United States President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle. Now Barack Obama was formerly a state legislator representing Chicago and later a U.S. senator. Thus, the Obama's residence is located near the University of Chicago in Kenwood on the city's south side. Um, when it comes to crime in Chicago, Chicago's crime rate in 2020 was 3,926 per 100,000 people that commit crimes. Um, Now, Chicago experienced a major rise in violent crime in the 1920s and also in the late 1960s and in the 2020s. Chicago's biggest criminal justice challenges have changed a little over the last 50 years, and statistically, they reside with homicide, armed robbery, gang violence, and aggravated battery. Chicago has a higher murder rate than the larger cities of New York and Los Angeles. However, while it has a large absolute number of crimes due to its size, Chicago is not among the top 25 most violent cities in the world. Um, Murder rates in Chicago vary greatly depending on the neighborhood in question. Um, the neighborhoods of Englewood on the south side and Austin on the west side, for example, have homicide rates that are 10 times higher than any other parts of the city. Um, Now, Chicago has an estimated population of over 100,000 active gang members from nearly 60 different factions of different sections broken up. According to reports in 2013, most of Chicago's violent crime comes from gangs trying to maintain control of drug-selling territories. Um, yep, Chicago also does sell a lot of drugs like weed and everything else that you can get your hands on. Um, and it's specifically related to the activities of the Sinaloa cartel, which is active in several American cities. Now, violent crimes vary significantly by area of the city, with more economically developed areas having low rates, but other sections have much higher rates of crime. In 2013, the violent crime rate was 910 per 100,000 people. The murder rate was 10.4 per 100,000 people, while the higher crime districts saw 38.9 murders, and low district crimes saw about 2.5 murders per 100,000 people. Now, Chicago's long history of public corruption regularly draws the attention of federal law enforcement and federal prosecutors. Now, that would be interesting if they could. Um, Now, Chicago's long history of public corruption regularly draws the attention of federal law enforcement and federal prosecutors. Um, Now, from 2012 to 2019, 33 Chicago older persons were convicted on corruption charges. Now, roughly one-third of those elected in the time period, a report from the Office of the Legislative Inspector General noted that over half of Chicago's elected older persons took illegal campaign contributions in 2013. Most corruption cases in Chicago are prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's Office, as legal jurisdiction makes most offenses punishable by federal crime. No, I never really use artificial intelligence. I wouldn't know. Um, Chicago contains over 600 public elementary schools and high schools citywide. Um, Now, including several selective admission magnet schools, there are 11 selective enrollment high schools in the Chicago public area alone, designed to meet the needs of the Chicago's most academically advanced students. These schools offer a rigorous curriculum with mainly honors and advanced placement courses. Walter Payton College Prep High School is ranked number one in the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois altogether. Um, Now, Chicago high school rankings are determined by the average test scores on state achievement tests. The district, with an enrollment exceeding 400,545 students, is the third largest in the U.S. On September 10th of 2012, teachers for the Chicago Teachers Union went on strike for the first time since 1987 over pay, resources, and other issues. According to data compiled in 2014, Chicago's choice system where students who test or apply and may attend one of the number of public high schools. There are about people actually do care about some of the stuff I talk about. So if you I'm talking about Chicago, which is where I was born and grew up in. I was born and raised in Chicago, and that's what we're talking about. Tourist destinations, anything in Chicago in itself. So Chicago has a network of Lutheran churches, and several private schools are run by other denominations of faith, such as the Ida Crown Jewish Academy in Westridge. The Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Chicago operates Catholic schools, including the Jesuit preparatory schools and others. A number of private schools are completely secular. There is also the private Chicago Academy for the Arts, a high school focused on 6 different artistic disciplines. And the public Chicago High School for the Arts, a high school focused on 5 disciplines: visual arts, theater, musical dance, musical theater, dance, and music. See, when I didn't really catch Scottie Pippen with the Bulls because I was born in '88. I never didn't really watch the Bulls until after they drafted Derrick Rose. But I do remember some of the players. Well, that's your thing. I didn't start catching the Bulls. I didn't start watching the Bulls until until they drafted Joakim Noah and Derrick Rose. I didn't really follow the Bulls during that time. Well, the Bulls are centered in Chicago. That's also part of a topic too. Now, when it comes to college and universities, no, if you're talking about the WNBA, the female version of the WNBA is called the Chicago Sky. That's the women's basketball league. Since the 1850s, Chicago has been a world center of higher education and research with several different universities. Now, these institutions constantly rank among the top national universities in the United States as determined by the U.S. News and World Report. Highly regarded universities in Chicago and the surrounding area are the University of Chicago, Northwestern University, Illinois Institute of Technology, Loyola University, Chicago. Then you got DePaul, Columbia University, and the University of Illinois, Chicago. And other notable schools include Chicago State University, the School of the Arts of Institute of Chicago, East West University, National Louis University, North Park University, Northern Illinois University, Robert Morris University of Illinois. Yes, because I was born and raised in Chicago. I know almost everything about Chicago, up to a point. I'm not going to say I claim that I clearly know everything of Chicago, but I know like where certain hotspots are to go to, like for tourist destinations and stuff like that. Now, William Rainey Harper College, William Rainey Harper College is the first president of the University of Chicago. Was instrumental in the creation of a junior college that was named after him. Establishing nearby Joliet Junior College as the first in the nation in 1901. So when it comes to Chicago, you got the Art Museum, McCormick Place, where they do the car show every year. You got Brookfield Zoo, Lincoln Park Zoo. You have the Shedd Aquarium, where you get to see all the marine animals, like the aquatic animals. You also have Adler Planetarium, where you get to learn about the solar system. You also have the Art Museum, where you get to see all the paintings. Like I said, there's just so much to see in Chicago in itself. My favorite is the Museum of Science and Industry. I went there last week, sorry. I've been there several times, but last week was a really good one. You can check that one out, that video of the live stream, on my other channel, Rusty, called RVW King, and you actually will see the video of me filming inside the Museum of Science and Industry. and seeing and walking around it. Also, when it comes to television, um, for Chicago, Oprah Winfrey was big in Chicago, where she had her studio, Harpo Studios, in downtown Chicago, before she ended up retiring. I don't think she does her show anymore. Um, Now, when it comes to Chicago, nope, not even gay. Not gay at all. Never been, never will be. Chicago has Chicago has been the home of several prominent talk shows, including Oprah Winfrey Show, Steve Harvey Show, the Rosie Show, the Jerry Springer Show, the Phil Donahue Show, and the Jenny Jones Show, and more. Um, the city only has one PBS member station. Its second was as WYCC 20 removed its affiliation with PBS in 2017. um, now um, as of 2018, the Windy City Live is Chicago's only daytime talk show, which is hosted by Belle Warner and Ryan Chevalieri at ABC7 Studios, with a live weekday audience, which is actually in Chicago. Another place to go to is the Torture Museum. That's an actual place in Chicago called the Torture Museum. No, this is copy. Um, these are all the news channels in Chicago. Nope, I don't do drugs at all. Never have. So these are all the Chicagoland news stations. You got WBBM TV2, owned and operated by CBS. Um, I don't do drugs at all. Nope, never done drugs. Then you got WMAQ TV, owned and operated by NBC. Then you have nope, never done drugs at all. And then you got a couple Spanish channels. Then you also got the movies and newspapers. Nope, never done drugs at all. Two major daily news papers are published in Chicago: the Chicago Tribune and the Chicago Sun-Times, which are very popular newspapers in Chicago, and you can get them basically anywhere. So now when it comes to, but the Tribune has having the larger circulation. Chicago Tribune has nope, not a crackhead at all, never done drugs. There are several regional and special interest newspapers and magazines such as Chicago, the Polish Daily News, which is centered on Polish news, the Lithuanian Daily Newspaper, which is centered on Lithuania. Nope, never done drugs. The Chicago Reader, the Southtown Star, and the Chicago Defender, the Daily Herald, and New City, Streetwise, and the Windy City Times. Now, the entertainment and cultural magazine Time Out Chicago and Grab Magazine are also city, as well as local news magazines, like for music. Nope, never done drugs. Chicago has over 50,000 watt AM radio stations. The Odyssey, the Tribune Broadcasting owned WGN, the Cumulus Media, and the ESPN Radio owned MVP. And Chicago is also home to a number of national radio shows, including Beyond the Beltway, with Bruce Dumont on Sunday mornings. Now, the Chicago Public Radio produces nationally aired programs such as PRI's American Life and NPR's Wait, Don't Tell Me type program. Not gay and not a crackhead. Nope, not gay and not a crackhead at all. Now, Chicago is a major transportation hub in the United States. It's an important component in global distribution. You got Chinatown, which is all Chinese restaurants. That's a good area to go to. Not gay and not a crackhead. Um, Now the city of Chicago has a higher than average percentage of households with a car. There's a lot of people in Chicago that don't have one. Um, 26% of Chicago households do not have a car, and increased slightly to 27% in 2016, but the national average was 8.7% in 2016, and Chicago averaged about 1.12 cars per household in 2016 compared to a national average. It's actually pretty good. I actually tried out Giordano's last week, and that was not bad. Not gay and not a crackhead. Audie, maybe Audie is. I wouldn't know. I've never met Audie, but he seems to be stupid and gay. Um, okay, yes, we figured that one out. Yeah, if you like pizza, you can try deep dish. The two biggest ones out here are Illuminati's and Giordano's. Those are the two biggest deep dish pizzas to get out here. Um, now, due to parking, due to Chicago's wheel tax, now this I do not agree with, but I can understand why they did it. Now, due to Chicago's wheel tax, residents of Chicago who own a vehicle are required to purchase a Chicago City vehicle sticker. I've never been on that show. I don't even know what that is. Um, who own a vehicle are required to purchase a Chicago City vehicle sticker. In established residential parking zones, only local residents can purchase a zone specific parking sticker for themselves and guests. Nope, I was not. Um, Chicago since 2009 has relinquished rights to its public street parking. Um, I have not smoked any drugs at all, and you have not seen me lit up a crack pipe or anything. So no, I do not do drugs at all. Nope. I have to look and see how to do the moderating. Now, now Chicago struggled to close a growing budget deficit. The city agreed to a 75-year, $1.16 billion deal to lease its parking meter system to an operating company called the. Now, Audie is yapping about him being gay. Is yapping about himself being gay and being a crackhead. I was born and raised in Chicago, and that's what I've been. That's what I love. Um, um, nope, I'm not drugged up at all. I've never done drugs. And I don't want to. Seven main line and four auxiliary interstate highways, 55, 57, and 65, which are in Indiana. 80 also in Indiana, so it was 90. 94, which also leads to Indiana. And then you got 190, 290, 190, 290, 294, and 355. Run through Chicago and its suburbs. Segments that link to the city center are named after influential politicians, with three of them named after former U.S. presidents like the Eisenhower, Kennedy, and Reagan, and one named after two Democratic candidate Adlai Stevenson. Now the Kennedy Expressway and nope, it's not Lane, it's Coffee, and I can show you that. Yes, I'm pretty sure the Audi is a tweaker. The Kennedy and Dan Ryan Expressways are the busiest state maintained routes in the entire state of Illinois in itself. Now this is the inside of the Union Station, which I've been there a couple times, and this opened in 1925, and it is the third passenger rail terminal in the United States. this is coffee looks like, and that is coffee. It's not. There's nothing in it other than coffee. Nope, there's coffee right there. So, like I said, no alcohol in it, no drugs, no nothing. Nothing. It's just plain coffee with pumpkin flavor. I'm pretty sure you do look like shit, Audie. Is it because of all that dick sucking you do? Now, with the transit systems, the Regional Transportation Authority, RTA, coordinates the operation of the three service boards, CTA, Metro, and PACE, which are also buses. Now, the Chicago Transit Authority, CTA, handles public transportation in the city of Chicago. And a few adjacent suburbs outside of Chicago city limits. The CTA operates an extensive network of buses and rapid transit elevated and subway system known as the Chicago L, or just the L system, which is short for elevated, with lines that are designed by color, which I know there's different lines in Chicago, but different colored names to it. These rapid transit lines also serve both Midway and O'Hare airports. The CTA's rail lines consist of the color red, blue, green, orange, brown, purple, pink, and yellow lines. Both the red and blue lines offer 24-hour service, which makes Chicago one of a handful of cities around the world, and one of the three in the United States, then the other being New York City and Philadelphia, to offer a rail service for 24 hours a day, every day of the year, with the city's limits. Nope. Not on drugs at all. Metra is the nation's second most used passenger regional railroad network, which operates an 11-line commuter rail service in Chicago and throughout the city, throughout the Chicago suburbs. The Metro Electric line shares its trackage with Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District South Shore Line, which provides commuter service between South Bend and Chicago. Now, PACE provides bus and paratransit service in over 200 surrounding suburbs, with some extensions into the city as well. A 2005 study found that 1/4 of commuters use public transit. The Greyhound line provides intercity bus service to and from the city of the Chicago bus station. We know you're dumb, Audie. That's just the thing about it. I've never taken the Greyhound bus, but I have taken the Pace bus and the Amtrak. Here's the Amtrak train. You got the Amtrak train right here leaving Union Station. Like I said, I've been to Union Station. Now, Amtrak long distance and commuter rail services originate from Union Station. Now, Chicago is one of the largest hubs of passenger rails service in the nation. The services terminate in Port Huron, St. Paul, the San Francisco area, New York City, New Orleans, Portland, Seattle, Miami, Milwaukee, Carbondale, Quincy, Boston, St. Louis, Kansas City, Grand Rapids, Los Angeles, San Antonio, and Pontiac. Now future service will terminate at Moline. An attempt was made in the early 20th century to link Chicago with New York City via the Chicago New York Electric Air Line Railroad, and parts of this were built, but it was never completed. Now, in July of 2013, the bicycle sharing system Divvy was launched with 750 bikes and 75 docking stations in Chicago. It is operated by Lyft for the Chicago Department of Transportation. As of July of 2019, Divvy operated 58,000 bicycles at 608 stations. Now, covering almost all of the city, excluding Pullman, Rosedale, Beverly, Belmont Craig, and Edison Park. In May of 2019, the city of Chicago announced this Chicago Electric shared scooter pilot program, scheduled to run from June 15th to October 15th. Now, the program started on June 15th. with 10 different scooter companies, including scooter sharing market leaders like Bird, Jump, Lime, and Lyft. Each company was allowed to bring 250 electric scooters. Nope, not even close. To 250 electric scooters, although both Bird and Lime claimed that they experienced a higher demand for their scooters. The program ended on October 15th with nearly 800,000 rides taken. I'm not gay, so so that wouldn't matter anyway. Chicago is the largest hub in the railroad industry. All 5 Class 1 railroads meet all in Chicago. Nope, not fat because I weigh only 140. Not gay, and don't do drugs at all. Chicago is like I said, the largest hub in the railroad industry. All 5 Class 1 railroads meet in Chicago. As of 2002, severe freight train congestion caused trains to take as long to get through the Chicago region as it took to get there from the west coast of the country, about 2 days. Now, according to U.S. Department of Transportation, she's doing great. She's doing great. She's still she's at work. Yeah, we also got a lot. Like I said, there's a lot of like I say, I'm not gay. So, and here is this is inside Chicago. This is inside O'Hare Airport. Yes, I do. I eat my girlfriend's pussy every night that she comes over. Chicago is served, like I said, by O'Hare International Airport, the world's busiest airport outside of Midway. Not gay at all. Chicago, like I said, Chicago is served by O'Hare International Airport, the world's busiest airport measured by airline operators. On the far northwest side, and Midway International Airport on the southwest side. In 2005, the O'Hare was the world's busiest airport by aircraft movement and the second busiest by total passenger traffic. Midway is like the second one after that. Now Midway Airport and O'Hare are both owned and operated by the city of Chicago. Gary Chicago International Airport and Chicago Rockport International Airport, located in Gary, Indiana, and then you got and they can serve as alternative Chicago airports. However, they do not offer as many commercial flights as O'Hare and Midway. Now for years, Chicago has talked about building another airport. Basically, okay, so in the recent years, the state of Illinois has been leaning towards building an entirely new airport in the Illinois suburbs of Chicago. The city of Chicago is the world headquarters, or for United Airlines, the world's third largest airline flights. There's also a maritime museum in Chicago too. I would like to see that. Those are the ones about the boats and military stuff. The Port of Chicago consists of several major port facilities within the city of Chicago, and it's operated by the Illinois International Port District, formerly known as the Chicago Regional Port District. The central element of the Port District, Calumet Harbor, is maintained by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I don't know what the prices are. I do not. Yes, on the north side of Chicago, there is a big population of gays that live out there. I don't live on the north side of Chicago, so I wouldn't. Electricity is for most of northern Illinois is provided by Commonwealth. I live in Chicago, but I don't live on the north side. So is provided by Commonwealth Edison, also known as ComEd. Nope, I take a bus. I don't drive to Chicago because of how crappy it is when it comes to the traffic. Nope, not moving north at all. Their service territories border Iroquois County to the south, the Wisconsin border to the north, and then you got the Iowa border to the west and the Indiana border to the east. In northern Illinois, ComEd, a division of Exelon, operates the greatest number of nuclear generating plants in any U.S. And operates the greatest number of nuclear generating plants in any U.S. state. Now, because of this, I do not. I don't. I've never used a gun, never fired one. So no, I would not be one of those. Now, ComEd reports indicate that Chicago receives about 75% of its electricity from nuclear power energy. Now, recently, the city began installing wind turbines on government buildings to promote renewable energy. Now, natural gas in Chicago is provided by Peoples Gas, a subsidiary of Integri's Energy Group, which is headquartered in Chicago. Now, domestic and industrial waste was once incinerated, but is now landfilled mainly in the Calumet area. From 1995 to 2008, the city had a blue bag program to divert recyclable refuse from landfills. No, I am not. I don't even, like, for me, I go to college, so I don't have to worry about that, because I do not hang around any kids. Because of low participation in the blue bag programs, the city began a pilot program for blue bin recycling like other cities. Now, this provided successful and blue bins. This proved successful, and blue bins were rolled out across the city. Now you got the Illinois Medical District is on the near west side. Now let's open up another page where we can find my college. Let's go new tab. I don't even know why it's doing this. Okay, let's check out here. Yes, I do eat pussy. I eat my girlfriend's pussy every damn day. I don't care that you suck dick, Audie. Let's go to my college. Let's see if there's anything on my college thing here to look at. Now, this is the college I go to. This is nope, not even that. This is the college I go to. And let's see if I can find the building that I do my classes at on here. Yes, I do. My job pays for it, so yes, I do. And I'm old enough to go to college anyway. Yep. So, let's see if I can get into the T building. The T building is where I do all my classes. Since I have a high school education and I also have a college degree that I'm working on, I already know a lot of big words. And you'll see some of the places in here that are really nice. There's a fine arts building where you get to learn about fine arts. Um, yes. I've been doing my best to get my own college degree, because once I complete my college degree, I will be a certified engineer, making over $100,000 a year, if not more. They do not have any of those there. And nope, not gay at all. I never actually attended college on a scholarship, but this is the cafeteria right here. Part of it. This is cafeteria of my college at the top picture here. No, I'm going for a bachelor's degree. I'm going for a bachelor's degree in engineering. So here you got the college, you got the so here, this is the cafeteria of my college. Right behind these stairs is the cafeteria. I'm not a liar. Nope, not a scammer at all. This is the outside of one of the buildings. That is not a scammer at all. My job is paying me to go to college, and they're paying me to actually attend the school so I can actually learn and get a degree. And my job will pay me. And I actually have photos of me in my class that I actually took of actually what I'm doing in my class. I do not have a car right now, so I take the bus or I do Uber and Lyft. Let's go to another page, and I'll show you. Let's go to Facebook here because I posted it on Facebook. It's not that easy. It's not that easy as one would think. It's one of the hardest things you're going to learn. Let's see where I can find it at here. So here, you're going to see some of the photos of me in my class. You're not going to see me particularly because I'm working on some of the stuff. Yes. So here's one of the pictures from my class. This is my mechanical systems class. This is my mechanical systems class. This is posted on my Facebook page. So you got the motor right here with nuts and bolts to hold down the thing. And there's my college book. I'm not scamming you guys at all. This is actually me in my college class. This is from my Fluid Power 1, Fluid Power 2 class. No, I live in one of the most nicer areas. I live in one of the most nicer areas of Chicago, so there's not a lot of crime out where I live at. No drugs, no gun violence. It's just the woods, so you just see a lot of animals. And this is where this is the Fluid Power class that I've been doing. Nope. Well, for me, no, because I don't do drugs and don't drink alcohol at all. There's my teacher in my class. Nope, not lying at all. This is me in my class because I posted this on my page. Actually, well, I'm actually one of the nicest people in my household. Okay, so the books that I got for my class. Oh man. Most of my pills are antibiotics for pain. Let's see this here. This book, right here I got, is for my mechanical systems class. I am 5'5". This is my mechanical systems book class for my mechanical systems. That was part of the book you saw. And then there's 2 books for my other. I don't have a campus card. I haven't got one yet. This is for my Fluid Power 2 class. That's once I complete the first book. Nope, not scamming at all. I got my books here, so it shows that I'm not lying. I haven't set that up yet. I have to have the teacher help me walk me through that. This is the first book of my Fluid Power 2 class. And then there's another book called Fluid Power 2, Book 2. And we're still learning out of this one. Once I get the other stuff set up, then we'll be good to go. I gotta get my the MATLAB thing set up, and I haven't been able to get it done because the thing isn't working right. Nope, I don't have to shut up. But also, Chicago has sister cities, but that's really not the point of Chicago in itself. Nope, not a scammer at all. Just because I'm making something of myself, Audie, does not mean I'm a scammer. Just because you've never amounted to anything in your life does not mean I haven't. No, I'm a guy. Not gay, not a scammer, not a crackhead. Never done drugs before in my life. Nope, not trans at all. It's because I like working with electronics and mechanical stuff. No. You can you can go to college at any age you want. I don't touch boys. Let's see how busy it is in here. If anybody's in here. This is actually one of the most nicest rooms you'll have in the house that I have. Oh damn. There we go. Oh no, not that one. This is the master bedroom. I love this room, especially, but I'm not gonna get it because I'm not gonna pay $850 for it. But I do like the table though. I mean, this table would work to do my YouTube channel. Okay, here we go. There is no hostages in this house. Nope, not even close. Well, that's your decision. If you want to go to Caltech, you got the hot tub here. I love this thing. And then you got your own little shower here. Okay. Nope, the house is pretty much clean. Nope, not dirty at all. Nope, I don't have any animals at all in this house. Nope, and the house is pretty much clean, except for my bedroom, which I gotta do some laundry. That's the only bad thing, but nope, my house is pretty much clean. Nope. And this is my bathroom. See, pretty much clean. There's multiple people. There's because they're too busy. And then no, I basically have it as basically not wanting people to be over here unless I really want them to be. Nope. House is pretty much clean. We all pitch in. Everybody in this house. That's a lie. You're not very good at lying, Aldi. Nope. I do not use the N-word. I'm not racist at all. Nope, they're not. Not a crack house either. Nobody does drugs here. The landlord that owns this house does not want drugs on the property. So nope, no drugs will be done here. So next week I'm gonna have a busy schedule because I'm gonna be auditioning for this movie I'm gonna be in. We'll see how that goes and see how it gets promoted out. Nope. I do not. You have never seen me use the N-word on my YouTube, on my live stream, so that's not something you're going to see. There's a movie I'm going to be in called Long Kill. It's basically a movie based on a robot that malfunctions and it kills people. and basically it kills people. So it malfunctions and kills people, and I'm going to be playing a cop that's trying to stop the machine from killing the rest of the people. So we'll have that next. So we'll have that in a couple weeks for an audition, and I got to practice my lines. Nope. I have not. We're auditioning right now. We haven't filmed any scene. I basically do a lot of live streaming on history and stuff like that about different things. I don't think it's gonna be like in theaters. I am not a con man. That's Trump. If you're talking about con man, then you're talking about Trump. So I got a couple things to take care of. Now there is a lot of trolls on my YouTube channel. Yeah, Aldi. Aldi needs a job. I would not hire him at my job, so he would be out of a job anyway for there. But I already have my own job, and my job is no, fuck Trump. Because they have no life. Because they see that my channel is getting a little bit of recognition, and they're not happy about it. So a lot of the trolls come in and they try to tear you down. Yeah, Trump sucks ass. His hooker wife sucks. Yes, they do. They have different things at my class. Don't have a boyfriend because I'm not gay. But yes, they offer a lot of different stuff in my at my job and through everything else. So and my job pays me to go to college an extra. They pay me like an extra $500 a month on top of my regular pay from my job for like and stuff like that. That helps out. I'm Jewish, so basically I would not look anything like Hitler. I gotta take care of a couple things. I'm gonna let you guys go, and I'll be back next week for another video. But for the people that enjoyed, no, my job is not very. My mechanical skills are getting better. It's basically when you go to the college. Yes, at the school we do. We have an oil filter that we got to change every day. That we use the fluid power stuff and the motor machines that run on motor. But like for me, I don't change oil when it comes to cars because I don't own a car, so that wouldn't work for me. But we do change the oil on the school machines by ourselves. So I'm gonna let you guys go. I got a couple things to take care of, but I'll be back next week. And I know there's going to be more trolls each time coming on this channel because, like I said, I'm making something of myself by getting a following. And just basically fuck the trolls, fuck Trump. And but for the guys that tuned in, thank you. And from I don't really have a lot of lady friends that come over here except for one. And so, but I'm going to let you guys go. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button for the channel if you want more videos on the live streams like this. No, I'm not Chinese at all. I'm Jewish. But I'll let you guys go, and I'll be back next week for another video.